All right, let's review reciprocal functions. Parent means the simplest version of that equation, which is just 1 over x. And then we have 2 points that we're going to put on our graph, which are 1, 1, negative 1, negative 1. See, I can see this. So I just made the scale a little bit bigger, but 1, 1, and negative 1, negative 1. And we have 2 broken lines, asymptotes, at x and equals 0 and y equals 0. And that also gives me the domain and range restriction. So I'm going to put my horizontal and vertical lines there. It shows where the graph is undefined. And then the curve. So from the above point, I curve up and then curve to the right and follow. Don't touch the asymptotes. Curve down, curve up to the left, and you have your 2 curves. That's what it looks like. Now, when you transform with a, h, and k, this is what it's going to look like. So it's going to look like a over x minus h plus k. That's what it's going to look like. Where h is the horizontal shift, and it goes in the opposite direction. So plus means it goes to the left, minus means it goes to the right. K is the vertical shift, plus means up, minus means down. A is negative, the function is reflected. If a is bigger than 1, we call it a stretch, and if there was a fraction, which I wouldn't give you, it would be called a compression. And so we know the vertical asymptote is x equals what h is, and the horizontal is y equals what k is. So this is what we're going to use now to the right, and we'll do the 2 examples on the right and how I would do them, okay? So let's do example 1 and 2. Step 1 is to write down what a equals, which is the numerator, 1, what h equals, which is in the denominator, the opposite number, and what k equals, which is the last number. I'm going to put a little box around here. This just helps me organize it a little bit. This affects the y and this affects the x. I start with 2 points, 1, 1, negative 1, negative 1. The x, which is the first number, we use the h, and if it's negative, we subtract. So it's 1, subtract 1. It's moving 1 to the left. I do that to both x values. So negative 1, subtract 1. To the y value, it's going to be 2 steps. We're going to multiply and then subtract because it's negative. Now multiplying times 1 doesn't change it. So it's 1 times 1, subtract 5. So it's 1 take away 5. And then negative 1 times 1, that's negative 1, take away 5 is negative 6. And then my asymptotes are hk. So that's negative 1 and negative 5, and that's also my restrictions. So on my graph, I'm going to go to 0 and negative 4, and negative 2 and negative 6. And I'm going to put my asymptotes. So I have a vertical one at negative 1, try to follow the line, and a horizontal one at negative 5. And now you have the setup. The above point goes up and then follows. This point goes down and then follows, and you have your 2 curves. One thing this doesn't have, which you need to know, is the end behavior. So know that the end behavior always goes to k. So as x approaches infinity, f at x approaches k, the asymptote, which is at negative 1. And the left and the right always go to the same number for a reciprocal. So both the right and left will always go to that same, and this number comes from what k equals. Oh, I put the wrong number in. K is negative 5. Let's make that a 5. There it is. it's this asymptote. I'll just do one more and then we're done. So let's start. Maybe you can start. A is the number on top. H is the opposite number on the bottom. And there's no number after. So when you don't see a number added, that number you don't see is 0. That's going to be helpful for the asymptote and for the range. The 2 points I'm going to write down are 1, 1 and -1, -1. The x value, let me put a box around this again. This affects the y and this affects the x. So to the x coordinate, we're going to subtract 3. So 1 take away 3 and -1 take away 3. To the y value, we're going to multiply. Now if I add 0, it doesn't do anything. So we're just going to multiply by -2. So 1 times -2, and negative times a negative is +2. My asymptotes are hk. So my x asymptote is -3, and my y asymptote is at 0. That's why it's important to have 0. The domain restriction and the range restriction are those numbers. Oops, this should say -3, and this one's 0. There they are. And then I'm going to graph it. So we have -2 is a line. No, -3, sorry. -3 is a line. And 0. We have a point at -2, -2. Is there. And then at -4 and +2. And then we draw this. Now notice, when a is a negative number, it's now going to be like in these corners, like quadrants 2 and 4. So it reflected from this corner to now to this corners. Again, we're going to curve up and follow. There's what the graph looks like, and then make sure we write down the end behavior. And again, the end behavior always goes to the k value, which is 0. There you go. All right, Mr. G Math over and out. Good job reviewing reciprocal functions.